I recently watched and reviewed Deadpool and Wolverine, stating I really enjoyed the film, even though it had a myriad of problems in the story department. So today I want to talk about those, the cameos, all the things that worked really well, some of the things that annoyed me, and why the film doesn't really care, because at the end of the day, it proclaimed it was a paradox with one of the main villains, thereby giving it a get-out-of-jail-free card. If you haven't seen the movie and you want to avoid spoilers, obviously don't watch this. Otherwise, let's jump in. Speaking of spoilers, I'm going to be doing another video on how freaking annoyed I am with studios, with actors, with other publications, posting spoilers for movies before they're even out sometimes, before the film is even in theaters. It annoys the living hell out of me, and I'm going to be doing a rant on that coming up. So if you like movie reviews, movie rants, all things movies all the time, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let's begin. I gotta put this out right away. I saw this movie one time. I'm not like a hardcore nerd trying to use my own headcanon to explain away all the weird inconsistencies in this film, but at the same time, I love the Deadpool movies. I'm a huge fan of 20th Century Fox superhero flicks, all the X-Men movies. Some of the X-Men movies I really like. I like most of the characters, though, from those early ones. I thought Hugh Jackman was great. I thought even Michael Marsden as Scott Summers, a.k.a. Cyclops, I was okay with him. And how poorly they wrote that character. I'm still fine with it. I'm one of those guys. So for Deadpool and Wolverine, I went in with very high expectations because I knew Jackman was coming back. I love Ryan Reynolds. I thought the idea of a buddy road trip film was great. It seems to be so in line with the character. Having that serious, angsty, angry character with Logan bouncing off with the smart-ass smirk with the mouth, that's instant gold. And in that aspect, this movie freaking nails it from top to bottom. I thought almost every joke worked for me. I was laughing my ass off. The theater was loving it. My kids really liked it. But there is a lot of stuff that's going to fly over the heads of people that aren't quite as nerdy as maybe you and I are. Let's break it down. The film starts establishing that Wade is really happy with some aspects of his life, mainly his friends. Really his family at the end of the day. It's all he has. He's blowing out the candles. He has a birthday to celebrate. And it's also established kind of oddly that he is no longer with Vanessa. They split up. I don't know why this was something they had to write into this story. It didn't really seem to add anything to this character. And it felt like such an afterthought to throw in. Like maybe there's much more going on here behind the scenes. This was maybe a larger arc that they just didn't go with. Because the first two movies are very much about these two. The first one's a love story. The second one's about getting her back somehow. It's all about family. And so then to have it kind of feel undercut in this one by saying, oh my God, this guy freaking turned back time literally to save her ass. To not have them together in this felt a little bizarre. That's all. Just a little side hang up I had. I don't get why they did it. Anyway, the TVA shows up, interferes with his birthday celebration, short for celebration, and they kidnap his ass. And this is all done at the request of Mr. Paradox, played by that dude from Succession. Fantastic show, by the way. And here is where things already are completely off the rails and lose me. Now, I came out of the theater saying, I love the movie, it's really funny, you're gonna have a good time if you shut your brain off. And some people push back, were like, how dare you question this brilliant plot? It makes perfect sense from top to bottom. Well, maybe you can clarify a couple questions I have. We're gonna jump into it right now before I get into all the fun things that I loved. Because there's a lot of exposition going to take place in a second when he talks to Mr. Poole and explains to Deadpool that, hey, Wade, your world that you love, it's dying. It's going bye-bye. And I don't have the time, which is ironic because Mr. Paradox has all the time in the world working for the TVA, to wait around for it to slowly eat itself and fade away from existing altogether because this timeline is shot, dude. It's cooked. So he has developed a time ripper. Well, I guess he's brought it back. They outlawed him. It's in the corner. It's in like a warehouse somewhere. They dusted it off. They fired it back up. And they're going to just shred through timelines that they deem ill fit to survive any longer. But he's for the TVA. The TVA we've established through Loki, at least the first season that I didn't watch season 2, that time for the TVA is irrelevant. It doesn't work the same as it does for us mere mortals. So why does he need to speed the process up? I don't know. But that's just a small little tiny question I have about this movie. But I do want to also say, before you get upset and go, Adam, you're missing the point. Well, I think the point is they've given themselves an out. His name is Mr. Paradox, which already tells the audience, hey, we're going to say a bunch of stuff and it actually doesn't make any sense. And that's the genius of it all. We can do whatever we want with no consequence. Nothing needs to make sense. It's a Deadpool movie. That's fine. But then don't waste so much time explaining things that are meaningless and don't add up at all. So we have a world Deadpool lives in. I think it's like 10005. His world is going to be destroyed because the anchor person is dead. The anchor person being Logan. This concept to me is really weird. There's one dude or one female or male or whoever that's the anchor to an entire universe. Not just the planet Earth, the entire universe is hinging on one individual. That's nonsense. That's shenanigans. And also, this person's not around forever. Logan's been alive for a couple hundred years. How is it sustaining before then? It's not really a butterfly effect when your butterfly is not even alive. So the idea on its face is ludicrous, but then it gets even more confusing. Because Logan's not actually dead yet in Wade's universe. That doesn't happen until 2029 or something. It's in the future. I know that. It's in the future. Also weird is the idea that these two worlds are the same, because how depressing is it that in a few years Wade's entire, Earth is going to be a shit show. It's basically post-apocalyptic. Most of the mutants are dead because Professor Xavier had a bad headache in Logan. And so that's what we're saving it for? That's what X-23 is growing up in. These people are all going to be shit out of luck even if they do bring Wolverine back, unless he can change the course of things. In which case, why does the TVA send Wade to the point in time where Logan is already dead and gone for many, many years? His body is completely decomposed and all that's left is the adamantium skeleton. I truly don't know, but it did make for a really kick-ass opening sequence. That fight was phenomenal. I love that stuff. Just very playful, very silly, very cool stylized action. And that's going to be throughout the movie. Lots of kick-ass action. Now, I can't remember chronologically how this went, but at some point we also get Wade in a different universe altogether. Now, this scene's not necessarily a plot hole. I just thought it was poorly implemented in the movie. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. Deadpool is now on Earth 616, applying for a job as an Avenger. It's assumed that he used the time turner from Harry Potter that he got from Cable in Deadpool 2. And he went to this other multi-dimensional world where Avengers take place. And he wants to join them. Then he hopped back to his world. 5 years later, this all takes place for his birthday. If you're confused, so am I. I went cross-eyed just talking about this. And then, apparently, off camera, he destroyed the time turner. No longer can use it again. So he saved a couple friends' lives, killed off a couple Deadpool that he was embarrassed by, and there we are. Scene's incredibly funny with Happy. I just don't like how confusingly implemented into the film it was. And I found the next plot line, which is the largest one, to be the biggest stretch of them all. He breaks the TVA guy's nose. He's gonna go then steal a Logan from another universe, bring him to his in order to restore the balance having that anchor character with. We have a freaking hilarious montage where he jumps into these different places, sees different versions of Logan through the comics, through the shows, through movies. It's all done very well. We even have Henry Cavill, aka Superman, playing Wolverine. He didn't look the greatest to me as the character. I'm gonna say that. I didn't really dig the look, but it was very funny seeing him in the film. I also really appreciated the short Hugh Jackman Wolverine, how he's supposed to be from the comics and whatnot. Hilariously done. Eventually, he's gonna team up with the worst Wolverine of them all, the one that failed his timeline. We do get trickles of why he was the worst and how he let his timeline down. Eventually, we land on, okay, the X-Men were slaughtered by the humans, so he went on a rampage, killed a whole bunch of people, and a lot of innocents in the process. And so he drinks himself to death, but he can't die. So it's a losing cause all around. Eventually, Wade will do a good job convincing him that he can save his world as well as Wade's, which is a lie. And Logan does end up going along for the ride. But not before having a kick-ass fight against each other. This is a great scene. We get to see Logan really go into his rampage mode. He's jumping on the ground. It's like a Wolverine. It's good. It's good stuff. Fighting with that 20th Century Fox logo behind them, shattered to pieces. It's depressing at the same time. And this is the biggest stretch for me in the film. This is where the plot really went out the window. And I know it was established in Loki, and I'm sure it's a comic booky thing. That doesn't make it any less silly. So the TVA dude, Paradox, he explains that there's a special limbo place where people can go, which is like the island of misfit toys or something. This whole idea is so nonsensical and really only exists so that we can show these old IP characters and celebrate nostalgia. While they're there, there's a giant beast that's going to eat their souls or something. I don't know. Cassandra Nova's there. She's the twin daughter of Xavier. There is so much packed into this fucking movie. It's insane how much is in here. Really more than there needed to be. This leads to the most brilliant cameo in the movie. One how I have no idea how I missed coming a mile away because it seems so obvious in hindsight. But Chris Evans is there. Not as Captain America, but as Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch. What's odd though is Chris Evans isn't playing Johnny Storm though. He's almost doing a Dennis Leary style of voice. He goes on these long ranty tirades. It's really funny, but also bizarre at the same time. They're in a very Mad Max-esque post-apocalyptic setting that doesn't look near as good as Mad Max. I will say, Deadpool's never had a big budget. That's what makes these movies kind of fun. But this felt the cheapest out of the three, which is odd to think about, considering it now has Buka Bucks by Disney. Perhaps they blew the whole budget on cameos, which that's to be understood, seeing as all the people that show up here. And we're going to get to a whole bunch right now. Sabretooth from X-Men 1 is back. Toad from X-Men 1 is back. So happy because I just rewatched both X-Men 1 and 2 with my kids before we went out to the movie. My son's 12, my daughter's 15. They both really enjoyed the X-Men movies, so they had a blast seeing these guys show up again. But let's be very Billy Crystal clear about this. A day or two's worth of nostalgia is nothing compared to a guy like myself who watched these movies back in the day. It's very fun to see these characters show up again. But at the same time, a cameo is very surface level and superficial if it's not done very well. I think about, and I mentioned this in my regular review, I think about Austin Powers 3. I think that's easily the weakest of all of them. The plot is incoherent. Not that they have amazing plots, much like Deadpool, but Deadpool 1 and 2 actually do have pretty solid stories, especially the first one. It has some good drama. It does have some clever writing. And so I guess I expected that going into the third, foolishly so. And the same can be said for Austin Powers 3. The storyline takes a back seat to all the hijinks and all the cameos. I'm not going to give them away if you haven't for some reason seen Austin Powers 3. But the first 5 minutes of that movie has like a who's who of actors show up. And it even ends that way as well. Throughout the movie, there's just tons of cameos. And like, it's fun for that one quick dopamine high, but on rewatch and further discussion, there's just nothing to that. So it's like, okay, that was fun, but nothing lasts through that. And so here we have Wesley Snipes back as Blade, which was the biggest surprise, but also a welcome one. I freaking love Blade 1 and 2. I love that they reference Blade 3 and how Wesley Snipes doesn't like Ryan Reynolds. Deadpool makes a joke about it in the film. There's so much meta commentary throughout this movie about Disney screwing up the multiverse and how they suck. The new movies are terrible. They talk about what they can get away with humor-wise and how the overlords might not be happy with the inappropriate humor. They reference the failed 20th Century Fox films so many times in this. They reference real-world things like Hugh Jackman's divorce. There's a knock at that. They even have a knock at Ben Affleck because Elektra was brought back into the film. Those guys were married for a long time. And so, I mean, there's just so much commentary here. You will be completely lost by a lot of these jokes if you're not part of the overall zeitgeist with all of these references to not only movies, but also real world stuff with these celebrities. Way early on at the birthday party, Wade ends his long speech that we don't see, it's done off camera, by stating, well, these are my thoughts on politics, religion, the environment, and everything else, and I'm not going to repeat myself again. Very good commentary on how Disney and other studios are like over the head hitting you with some of their ideals and whatnot. And the messaging is just so boring and stale and on the nose. So it was very funny addressing that as well. We have Gambit in this one, played by Channing Tatum, who never actually played Gambit. This was always a very big fan cast. I think there was a movie that was supposed to come out years ago, but just failed. Instead, like Taylor Kitsch or whatever his name is, played him at one point in X-Men Origins Wolverine. But here we have, we have Channing Tatum, Tate, doing a very funny Cajun accent. Lots of jokes at that expense, how they don't know what he's saying. He doesn't look very good, in my opinion, as Gambit. Looks a little, be like me with the mask. You need a thinner physique for it, okay? You need to be a little bit thinner for the role. Channing Tatum back in the day, maybe, but, we're growing up and we're not slimming down is, I guess, the reality of things. So we have Channing Tatum, we got Jennifer Gardner, we have Wesley Snipes, we have Chris Evans, and we have X-23. That character's back from Logan. She's growing up more. And apparently she's also in this limbo place. I don't fucking know why any of these people... Listen, again, it doesn't make any sense. Why are these people in limbo? Why are they still alive? Why weren't they eaten by that giant creature? There's also apparently hundreds of Deadpools running around here that are mentioned. We have a really funny one, a peace-loving Deadpool, also played by Ryan Reynolds. And then, of course, there's Dogpool, this really disgusting-looking dog that Wade Wilson absolutely adores. And if I forget any cameos along the spoiler rant, that's to be expected because there's just so many things that happen in this film at any given moment. Let's jump to Cassandra Nova, the twin of Xavier. She hates him because he tried to kill her in utero, because even baby Xavier knew that she was going to be dangerous down the road. I mean, that's a fine beginning character arc for someone. The problem with this thing is she's been ruling this Mad Max world for a long time, and all it took was Logan to say, Charles Xavier's a good dude. He would never leave a man behind. He would never kill someone unarmed. That's not his way. And Cassandra Nova's like, oh yeah, I guess I never thought about it like that before. You guys can leave. That just felt a little too easy, in my opinion, for someone that seemed to very much hate Charles Xavier. I do want to pump the brakes for a second. Also point out that Paradox's reason for keeping Deadpool alive so that Deadpool can be an Avenger, why? That's one thing I just do not get. Why does Paradox give a shit about Deadpool and having him go be an Avenger? Paradox wants to be a God King. He wants to be the TSA. Why invite Deadpool and Logan now to go try to save his timeline that you so desperately want to rip apart? Just kill these two idiots. That stuff was just very, again, like, nothing matters, it's Paradox, whatever, sort of thing. Back to Cassandra, she really likes digging her fingers into people's faces. That got old fast. She is a cool kind of character. I mean, she has cool powers. She's unstoppable pretty much. Also kind of just a wet sack. Not much there. Not much to the character. Wasn't really thrilled with her, but the Deadpool movies haven't had the greatest villains. Cable easily being the best for me. I almost forgot Pyro's in this too, from X-Men 2, X-Men United, and X3. He was fine. He almost got a monologue out, but they killed him before he could. Poor bastard. I'm a little bummed no other original X-Men showed up, considering they had so many of the villains and the misfit toys from the other movies. I thought we were going to get a really amazing flashback where Logan went off and killed a bunch of people after the X-Men died. Would have been a nice way to show Charles again and Cyclops, and I don't care that much because I really love X-Men Days of Future Past. Freaking awesome movie. I thought they really did a good job putting a bow on everything, cleaning up the events of X3 and giving these people one final goodbye. So I'm not hugely upset. It just could have been a pretty sweet cinematic scene to watch Logan go through on a rampage, and whatever, we'll put it aside. There's so much action in here and so much fan service that I forgive it. And speaking of fan service, let's jump ahead to the most absurd scene in the movie that comes out of nowhere. But again, these are all kind of like SNL 5-minute skits, and I'm cool with it. They get their hands on the Doctor Strange spinny portal thing, jump back to Earth 10005, but they're quickly thwarted by Nova and like 100 Deadpools, including Lady Deadpool, a Samurai Deadpool, and Baby Pool. Lots of stuff happening here. Amazing action sequence takes place. There's a good one shot that goes on for a while. Yeah, I dig it. I'm a little surprised Baby Pool didn't do any fighting. I thought it would be pretty sweet to do a baby Yoda kind of flipping around thing like the old prequel movie where Yoda's flipping around like an idiot. I want to see that with Baby Pool, but you know, we got enough. We got enough here. Beggars can't be choosers. Also weird that Lady Pool didn't take off the mask and reveal she was Blake Lively or whoever she was. I'm pretty sure it's Blake Lively. Regardless, that stuff's great. Again, just kind of happens. Nova apparently just had them all hanging out in a cell that she was able to whip them up so fast and bring them out. And this leads us to the final confrontation where Logan and Wade have to decide who's going to be the hero. We get ourselves an Armageddon situation. I'm surprised they didn't call out Armageddon, where Wade tricks Logan, throws him out of the room, locks himself in, gives him a kiss and a wave, and he's going to be the one that's going to connect these two timeline threads together, having to take the blunt force of it all, sacrificing himself so that the Time Ripper, which is going to destroy these worlds, doesn't succeed. What has happened is Nova has got her hands on the Time Ripper and she's gonna destroy all of it. Every timeline's gonna go except for one. I think. I blacked out for a while. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. We're informed that there's a way to stop this by becoming a channel between these two, a bridge to sync all this together. The TVA guy explains so much exposition. What he wasn't expecting, though, is for both Logan and Wade to team up hand in hand and become this unbreakable chain, forming an unbreakable bond that would seal their fates forever in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so they survive, they save Earth 105. Wade is able to go back, blow out his candles, and live happily ever after with Logan by his side. It's a nice film. I had a good time with it. Can't say it was like a brilliant movie, but it was definitely one for the fans, and there's tons of humor throughout. I was laughing my ass off. I was impressed with some of the great action scenes, not only with that opening number, but also that car fight with Logan and Deadpool. Amazing stuff. The only disappointment was that the cameos didn't really get to shine. They gave them all their little hero spots where Elektra's using her size and Blade is... I don't know what Blade did. Blade didn't do much of shit. Why didn't Blade get some cool moments? Why didn't he have his jacket? Why wasn't he busting the katana out like crazy? There was a couple Uzi shots, but yeah, I love Blade. I just wanted to see more. Tate actually had the coolest fight with the cards. Could have saw more of that as well. Overall, though, this was a fun time at the movies. I think I hit most of the cameos. I'm sure I missed one or two, and I 1,000 apologies if I did. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did I touch upon everything? Did it make sense how I explained it? Did I completely miss a lot? It's possible. There's a lot here. Let me know in the comments. Please, again, think about subscribing, liking the video, sharing it if you want. And hopefully, I see you next time.